close. Across the state of Alabama, the attorneys of Hollis, Wright & Couch are here to serve you. With civil trial lawyer Josh Wright from the firm of Hollis, Wright & Couch and Alabama's 13 host David Lamb, the attorneys answer your tough legal questions straight ahead.
Hello and welcome in to the attorneys. Thanks so much for joining us this evening. We've got a panel of experts ready to take your questions. If you would like to get them to us, you can do so right now. The information all throughout the program will be on your screen, a way for you to call, text, or email us, and we will get to just as many of your questions as we can. But first up, let's take a look at our panel, introduce them to you, as is often the case, joined by Josh Wright of the firm Hollis, Wright & Couch. Good to see you, sir.
Great to see you too, David. This is a interesting topic this week on insurance claims, and somewhat fitting for the types of issues that we've seen come through Alabama, the storms and whatnot. When our firm has these issues come up, when clients come to us asking questions about insurance obligations and bad faith, Steve Couch to my right here, my partner, is the one that we go to because he's really an expert in this area, knows how to handle these cases and manage these cases, and does a great job. So we're glad to have you on, as usual.
Thanks, Josh.
Good to see you, Steve. Can we kind of get an overview on this issue as to what you most commonly see, or maybe even the most common mistakes or issues that folks seems to make when in terms of protecting ourselves from insurance claims?
Sure. I think the majority of calls that I field on a day-to-day basis or a week-to-week basis are people who are just get confused about the claims process. They don't understand what all obligations they've got versus what the insurance companies have got. And then I get a lot of calls about, well, they only valued my property at X and I think it should be Y, or they just out and out deny the claim. So I think, you know, just trying to describe the category or the topic that we're going to be discussing tonight, I'm hoping that we can touch on a lot of the calls that our firm gets on a week-to-week basis, and hopefully offer some education and knowledge to folks about the claims process, their responsibilities and the insurance company's responsibilities, and what kind of recourse they've got if everything kind of breaks down.
Josh, in your years of experience trying cases and helping folks out, when it comes to these issues of insurance, dealing with the insurance companies and insurance claims, well, what are some of the common threads or common issues that you see?
Well, undervaluing claims is a common thread or a common issue that I see that comes up quite a bit, where somebody will have a casualty loss, property loss, and they'll come to us saying, you know, my house was worth 3 times what's being offered.
Right.
They've hired an engineer, meaning the insurance company's hired an engineer to come in and evaluate the loss, and they valued it at this number, and I just don't think that that's correct.
Right.
What rights do I have? And that's a pretty common thing that we see. As far as just in general terms, you know, this pops up in so many different categories in so many different areas. Let's take, for example, car accidents. Insurance companies have duties and responsibilities, as do the insureds in car accidents. Home and property damage case, life insurance claims, it comes up. So it really is something that is applicable in a lot of different potential areas and different types of issues that we face as lawyers on a daily basis.
Question that we've got here to kind of kick things off, other than calling to report my claim to my insurance company, what else do I have to do to get my claim completed?
We take that?
Yeah, please.
Okay. Well, to start off with, of course, you have to report the claim, number one, whether it be by phone or whatever. You have to report the claim. In fact, you have an obligation as an insured in any kind of contract. You have to notify your insurance company within a reasonable amount of time. Thereafter, the person asks, what else do I have to do? Well, you have a duty under that contract, whether you remember seeing it or not. It's in that sea of language. You have a duty and responsibility to cooperate with the insurance company. You have to provide them information if it's a property claim. You know, give me a list of property that was destroyed in the fire, flood, whatever. You have to fill out claim forms. You have to talk to the adjuster whenever they call and tell them what happened. So there's a number of things you have to do. You may have to be asked, you might be asked to supply photographs or even given an examination under oath. Some insurance companies ask for that, and depending on the type of claim. But, you know, all the responsibilities in working through a claim certainly don't belong to the insured, to the customer. The insurance company has responsibilities as well, and that is they're supposed to get in touch with you and help you through the claims process. You shouldn't be out there by yourself. They may send you a bunch of claim forms like I talked about a second ago, that's just one after another, where you fill out your property items and how much you paid for it or how much it was worth, etc. So, and they have a responsibility to return your phone calls. I get a lot of calls about that. Hey, my adjuster's not calling me back. They have an obligation contractually, like you do, to keep in touch with you and keep you up to date as to what's going on.
The size and scope of the tornado damage was such and affected so many homeowners. One common complaint that I heard was, you know, that just if it was not a devastating damage, the insurance company wasn't getting in touch with them, was not even calling them back. They were leaving a message and no response. Is that a justifiable excuse if you know, like the storm that came through in April, and you've called your insurance company, you know, you've got a relatively minor storm damage, but it is your home and it's damaged. Is that just a justifiable excuse that we haven't had time to get to you, or how long should a homeowner have to give?
Well, the law says it all has to be reasonable. There's a contractual duty and a legal duty for the insurance company to get in touch with you and contact you. Now, those were a lot of calls that I got back of April of last year, as a matter of fact. Nobody's calling me back. Nobody's calling me back. I can't tell you, David, how many calls I made to various insurance companies in the state and wrote emails for people saying, hey, your insured has tried to contact you 10 or more times, blah, blah, blah. As you know, you got an obligation under the law to do X, Y, and Z, and they'd get a call thereafter. You shouldn't have to do that.
Right.
Now, insurance companies, especially when you've got a disaster like the tornadoes, they are supposed to man up, if you will, get enough adjusters out there to handle the anticipated claims that are out there. I think what I see this really, where it came from, is the fact that a lot of companies, to my knowledge, have gone to a more automated system. And the adjusters that are there, they're just stacked on workload increases, because everything's pretty much done by computer, whether it's evaluating or valuing the property, etc. Because there's fewer people there, I think more and more people are getting frustrated, leading to the wash of calls that we got last year and other law firms around town and in the state got last year.
Steve's right. Obligations and responsibilities that the carrier has, they've really got to follow through with them. But patience in catastrophic losses like that and huge storms like that, it really is required from insureds too. People do have to be patient. Insurance companies, a lot of times, are trying to do it the right way. What we're here to talk about really today is not just the obligations and responsibilities, but when somebody doesn't do it the right way, what recourse you've got. Yeah. And sometimes it gets to that point, but sometimes patience has to dictate the issue.
Steve, you used the term examination under oath. What does that mean?
Examination under oath, I say many, sometimes insurance companies will ask their insureds or customers to give them an examination under oath. That is where an insurance company can demand that you, the customer, come in to a law firm or office and answer questions under oath. And some people say, why in the world do I have to do that? Well, there's some reason that they're asking for. They want to ask you questions about the claim, the fire, the theft, or whatever it was. And they will hire an attorney to do that, and you have a contractual obligation, like I said, to cooperate, and you have to go there and you have to give that statement under oath, and that really scares a lot of people. I can't tell you how many times that I've looked at claims after denial, and I'll look at the examination under oath, and the customer's sitting there by themselves, and the lawyer's asking them questions, and they're nervous, and they say something, and the language is manipulated, in my opinion, and claims denied. If somebody ever asks, if your insurance company ever asks you for an examination under oath, keep in mind you don't have to go there by yourself. Right. You've got a right to bring in a lawyer with you, have them sit there beside you, or talk to a lawyer before you go. You don't have to just go there and start answering questions from an insurance company. That's a lawyer that they've hired to take your examination. Yeah. There's a reason for it.
We always recommend getting somebody involved early, getting a firm involved early, a lawyer involved early in the claims process if it gets to that point. If it gets to the point of actually having to go give a statement, go contact somebody. Right. Most firms that handle insurance claims do so on a contingency basis, which means that the consumer, the individual, the insured, doesn't have a duty or a responsibility to pay anything unless there's success in the case, and then it's paid out of the proceeds. And so it doesn't necessarily cost you anything to go find counsel to make sure they're lead guiding and directing you through the process.
All right, time for our first break. Don't forget that you can call, text, or email your legal questions directly to the attorneys. They are here to offer their expertise and help you solve your legal battles. You can contact them 24/7, and we just might feature your questions on the show. You can also fan them on Facebook and just search for Hollis, Wright & Couch. Follow them on Twitter as well, Hollis_Wright. Much more on this topic after the break. The attorneys will be right back. Keep those receipts, something that we often hear here on the attorneys. Welcome back to tonight's show. Also, before we get back into our conversation, we're going to piggyback right on that firm fact there, but we still would love to hear from you. Got a couple of segments remaining, so plenty of time for you to call, text, or email your questions into us. That firm fact, talking about the importance, gentlemen, of keeping those receipts, it kind of piggybacks right on the whole undervaluing issue we discussed earlier.
Well, it is, and you know, one of the things that you want to be able to do is establish the value of your property as best you can. Generally, the law in Alabama allows an individual to value their property and to testify as to what the value of that property was. There are some exceptions to that general rule, but having receipts, having a yearly video that you take of your clothes and of the things in your home, not a bad idea. As I mentioned at the beginning of the show, at the top end of the show, you know, we see undervaluing property as one of the bigger issues that comes up. What you want to make sure you do is get somebody involved early on that. People don't recognize they're entitled to another opinion. They're entitled to have somebody else value that property, and then have a disagreement with the insurance company, and that's where lawyers get involved. And sometimes you don't have to get lawyers involved, but for the most part you probably do on the value issue, and hopefully you'll be able to work through those issues.
Can I add to that real quick? That video, I think that's important. It's not just some lawyers up here recommending that people do that. I actually helped a guy out in North Alabama. He had a fire loss, and he had everything, and he'd lived there 20 plus years, and everything they owned was in the house. Of course, the insurance company sent them forms to fill out, all, you know, the itemization. What did you own? How many of them did you own? And how much was it worth? And he couldn't remember everything they had in the house. He remembered some of the major stuff, etc. But what ended up happening was his sister, who lived down the road, she had numerous pictures over the years from birthday parties and that type of thing. And we dug them out and kind of looked through and said, oh yeah, there was this and this and this and this and this. And that really kind of helped us a lot in reconstructing everything that he had, all his contents, if you will. And then we had to do some research to put some value on those, or he did, and you know, that worked out to his benefit. So I think it's real important to, you know, a videotape, walk around your house, videotape it, download it on a flash drive of your computer, put that in a safe spot, because if ever you're asked, you're not going to keep a receipt for everything in your house. I don't know anybody who does that, but it certainly would help in the event that, you know, I hope that it never happens, but if it does, you have to start listing out your property, because the insurance company is not going to tell you what you had in the house, and that's so much easier to try to reconstruct what you own.
Okay, back to our questions. I've heard of insurance companies being sued for bad faith. What is that?
Bad faith, David, that's actually a legal term of art. What it describes are those claims that somebody may have when an insurance company wrongfully denies their claim or wrongfully undervalues a claim. It's a little different than the contract claim somebody may have. In fact, bad faith, it originated years ago. Courts were seeing, you know, an insurance company would come along and say, hey, it's not payable, or get in an argument about value, and it may take, you know, a year or two to actually resolve that claim. And then, you know, claimants were saying, well, wait a minute, you know, why I'm having to pay a lawyer or whatever and delay the payment of my benefits that I should have got 2 years ago, and all I get is the contract damages. In other words, the value of my property that should have been paid 2 years ago. Courts then thought, well, you know, that's justifiable, and we recognize that, and bad faith grew out of that. It's a tort. It's a little bit different than a contract. In a bad faith case, when you have it, you can get what the law calls extra contractual damages, emotional stress, etc., aggravation, to compensate you for having to live over the time it takes to actually litigate that claim or deal with the insurance company during the time that it was denied. There's different types of bad faith. There's first-party bad faith, the third-party bad faith, but generally it refers to those occasions and claims somebody may have when a claim is wrongfully denied or undervalued by an insurance company.
Or even if there's improper investigation or no investigation whatsoever, and that oftentimes will happen where there is no investigation but a claims adjuster is kind of aggressive and just denies the claim initially to see whether or not you're going to challenge it. That could amount to bad faith also. So Steve's put his finger on it, though. That's exactly right.
You know, and let me say this too. It's you know, Josh and I, we've said this before. I mean, I don't think every claim is done in bad faith. I mean, different claims are handled different ways. Some of them are done speedily in the way they're supposed to. Some claims are not. And it's not just me, a trial lawyer up here saying that, or Josh. In fact, you know, I consider it my job doing what I do to kind of keep up with what the industry is saying and what they're doing. And in anticipation of this show, David, I actually pulled one of the articles in a magazine that's written by and for the insurance industry.
Okay.
And this is this month's edition. And I think it kind of shows this. It shows that not only are lawyers aware of the attitudes and the practices that are out there with insurance companies, but they recognize it too. This is an article that was actually written by a guy who's certified by the Chartered Property Casualty Underwriters. He's an industry executive, and he writes, every insurer or self-funding entity has a basic philosophy to dictate how claims should be handled. Some self-insurers are so paranoid that they believe every claimant is a thief and a fraud. They're ready to fight every claim all the way to the Supreme Court if necessary. A few insurance companies follow a similar philosophy: lowball everybody, stonewall to the bitter end, and don't settle until standing on the courthouse steps. These tactics work occasionally, wearing the claimants or insurers down to the point where the claim is surrendered out of sheer frustration. We encounter that a lot. Other times, the claim ends up in court with a jury awarding punitive damages to the insured or claimant for the aggravation they've sustained. Fear not, there will be an appeal. That's not written by a trial lawyer like me and Josh. That's written by an insurance industry executive. So, you know, I'm trying to be objective up here and just say that bad faith, we certainly recognize it, and it does happen, and the insurance industry certainly recognizes that it happens too.
And a lot of people, consumers, insureds, don't realize what their rights are. They assume, best case scenario, I'm just going to get my contractual damages back if I push this issue. And sometimes they'll get frustrated and give up with the process. The reality is that bad faith is a deterrent to prevent insurance companies from doing it the wrong way. And we often talk about, as Steve just mentioned, lots of insurance companies do it the right way. We're here to talk about those that are not doing it the right way, and if you don't meet your obligations as an insurance company and it gets to the point of bad faith, you want to make sure you get with a firm that understands and knows how to litigate these cases.
All right, time to head to break, but as we do so, a reminder that we'd love to hear from you. Get in touch with us, call, text, email. Would love to get your questions and include them in our final segment. A couple of other points about the firm Hollis, Wright & Couch. You can find them on Facebook. Just search Hollis, Wright & Couch. You'll also find them on Twitter, Hollis_Wright. Stay tuned. Our final segment of the attorneys and with our panel of experts coming right up.
From all of us at Hollis.
Good stuff. Very helpful. Our final segment here of the attorneys. As we finish up our conversation tonight, I want to encourage you to go ahead and get in touch with us. You got a question, we'd love to hear it. And as Josh says quite often, everything that comes in, the attorneys at the firm of Hollis, Wright & Couch, they will answer those. So even after the show ends, you can still get in touch with the panel of experts. Let's get to some questions, gentlemen. One, how do I know if my insurance company is acting in bad faith?
You know, I'm not sure a typical consumer would or a typical insured would. That's why you need to get with counsel.
Right.
I know it when I see it. Steve knows it when he sees it. If it doesn't smell right, doesn't feel right, you probably need to have somebody look at it again. And we've talked about this many times. You know, lawyers take cases on a contingency. It's not going to cost you anything to get a lawyer to help you evaluate something. Waiting and delaying could be catastrophic. Get somebody involved early that can evaluate the circumstance, and they very well may do what Steve and I do all the time and say, look, that's not bad faith. That's not a breach of contract. They have the right under their insurance agreement to do exactly what they're doing. However, we do see circumstances, and Steve and I see a lot of cases where they're not doing it the right way, and that's when the advice comes in related to bad faith.
Yeah, I think it's really, how do you know when somebody's doing it? Generally, when I make a conclusion, okay, this is a case of bad faith and it needs to be filed, it's generally a culmination of a whole lot of different things. It's not failing to return a phone call once, twice, 3 times. That will come into play in the lawsuit, but you know, is that the reason that the lawsuit's filed? No. I mean, generally when you see a lot of different wrongful activity or inappropriate activity, and then there's a complete failure to investigate or failure to thoroughly investigate, they deny the claim outright after failing to investigate it, or they undervalue it. You know, those are some types of things that, you know, you take all those collectively, and generally that's when I'll make a decision whether or not to file a case. And that's why, you know, hearkening back to what Josh said, I think it's important that you get a lawyer whoever it is, who's experienced in handling bad faith and insurance litigation to take a look at these. I mean, we've had a number of cases over the years that, you know, early on I didn't think it was bad faith, and then, you know, claims denied or something happens where I make the call that it is. I had a life insurance policy in an auto accident case a few years ago where a fellow was a passenger and there was an accident and he was killed. He was ejected. Well, you know, the insurance policy excluded if the death is caused or contributed to by you having drugs or alcohol. The autopsy showed that the fellow had marijuana in the orbitals of his eyes, but nothing else. And they said, well, that caused or contributed to his death. They denied the claim. Couldn't find out. He's the passenger. He wasn't driving. And that had nothing to do with it. He had been around some folks who apparently had been smoking marijuana, but that didn't cause or contribute to the death. But they get a doctor from California to come out here, and he testified, yes, it did. And one of our federal court judges rightfully said, that's what you're saying is not credible, and struck him. And we ended up getting a good result for that family up in Double Springs in that case. But, you know, it's one of those things that you know it when you see it as an experienced litigator.
And the general rule of thumb, and we actually get this question quite a bit, the general rule of thumb is if you feel like you're getting the runaround and the carrier is not really trying to get the claim resolved with you and they're working against you, those are some of the type feelings that you will feel if bad faith is starting to take place or if somebody's breaching a contract. So just be looking for those things. If it just doesn't feel right, you may want to get somebody to take a look at it and just see.
All right. Real quick, less than 2 minutes, but a question here. In an auto accident, insurance company is saying my uninsured motorist coverage does not apply? Right?
Generally, that's not necessarily true. If you were in the household of a vehicle or individual who has uninsured motorist coverage, you may very well be entitled to the uninsured motorist coverage. And just so the viewers understand, uninsured motorist is that rainy day coverage that you pay for on your own policy to protect you in 2 circumstances. One, if you're hit by an individual who did not have insurance. That's called true uninsured motorist.
Right.
And then if that person had limited coverage and the damages are greater than that person's coverage, you have what's called UIM, which is underinsured motorist coverage. If your carrier is telling you don't have coverage and you think you do, you want to look at that policy again, or you want to go talk to somebody about that.
If it's UIM, though, and maybe the person's not heard if it was a fender bender or something, maybe the UIM doesn't apply. It depends on the case.
That's right.
Probably need to ask a lawyer.
That is why you need to ask for good legal counsel. Gentlemen, thanks so much. We're out of time. Time has just flown by.
Great topic today.
Indeed. It affects a whole lot of folks. Hey, thank you so much for being with us. A reminder to call, text, email. All of these will get to the firm of Hollis, Wright & Couch, and they'll get in touch with you. So be sure to get in touch with them. Thanks so much for being